the invisible force behind every price you've ever paid. You checked your Uber app after the concert ended. The price was triple what you paid to get there. Nothing changed. Same distance, same driver, same car. But 20,000 people walked out of the same venue at the same time, all opened the same app, all wanted a ride home. And the price exploded. That is supply and demand. Not in a textbook, in your pocket, in real time, making you stand on a corner for 20 minutes waiting for prices to drop. Supply and demand is probably the single most powerful concept in all of economics. It explains why concert tickets cost $400, why your rent went up, why avocados are expensive in winter, why your salary is what it is, and why the GPU you wanted was out of stock for 8 months. It is not a theory that lives in charts. It lives in every transaction you make, every day, whether you understand it or not. Today, you understand it. What demand actually means. Let's start with demand, and be precise about it, because most people use the word wrong. Demand is not just wanting something. Plenty of people want a Ferrari. That's not demand. Demand, in the economic sense, is the quantity of something that people are willing and able to buy at a given price. The able part matters. It combines desire with purchasing power. Demand without the ability to pay is just wishful thinking. Economics calls that a want. When you have both the desire and the money to act on it, that's demand. And here's the key rule. As price goes up, quantity demanded generally goes down. As price goes down, quantity demanded generally goes up. This is called the law of demand. It sounds obvious, but has enormous implications. When Uber's price triples after a concert, some people decide to walk, call a friend, wait, or take public transit. The higher price reduced the quantity demanded. Not everyone, but enough. The people who stayed in the app and paid were expressing demand at that price level. The ones who left were expressing that the price exceeded their willingness to pay. Both groups are participating in the demand side of the market, just at different price points. What supply actually means. Supply is the other side. Supply is the quantity of something that producers are willing and able to offer for sale at a given price. And the key rule here is the opposite. As price goes up, quantity supplied generally goes up. Higher prices incentivize more production, more effort, more of whatever is being sold. The Uber example again. When the surge price kicks in, drivers who were sitting at home, eating dinner, or debating whether to log on suddenly find it worth their time. The higher price pulled more supply onto the road. That's supply responding to price, predictably, every time. Surge pricing is meant to simultaneously incentivize an increase in the supply of drivers by promising a higher return per fare, and temper rider demand by charging a rate that some customers won't be willing to pay. Internal revenue service. Two forces moving in opposite directions, both responding to the same price signal. Equilibrium. The sweet spot. Now put supply and demand together. At low prices, lots of buyers, not enough sellers. Shortage. At high prices, lots of sellers, not enough buyers. Surplus. Somewhere in between there is a price where the quantity buyers want to buy exactly matches the quantity sellers want to sell. No shortage, no surplus. Everyone who wants to transact at that price can. That is called equilibrium, or the market clearing price. The equilibrium price is the sweet spot where supply exactly meets demand. This is the foundational concept used by economists and institutions like the Bank of Canada to understand price movements. Tax Foundation. Markets are constantly searching for equilibrium. Prices move up and down, sometimes in milliseconds, sometimes over years, as the balance between supply and demand shifts. Think of it like a seesaw. Demand on one side, supply on the other. When one side gets heavier, the price moves to rebalance. The 4 things that move prices. Understanding supply and demand means understanding what causes them to shift. Here are the main levers. What shifts demand? Income. When people have more money, they demand more of most things. When incomes drop, they demand less. This is why premium products sell better in economic booms and tank in recessions. Tastes and preferences. Culture, trends, and social media move demand constantly. Stanley Cups had the same supply chain for years. One viral moment and demand went parabolic. Price followed. Price of related goods. If the price of beef goes up, demand for chicken often goes up too. People substitute. If the price of gaming PCs drops, demand for gaming monitors tends to rise. They complement each other. Expectations. Expectations of future higher prices are leading consumers to stockpile now. A great example of a demand shift. If you think something is going to get more expensive, you buy more of it today. This moves demand forward in time and drives current prices up. National Taxpayers Union. Number of buyers. More people in the market means more demand. Immigration, population growth, new markets opening, all of these expand the buyer pool.
What shifts supply? Input costs. When raw materials get more expensive, it costs more to produce the final product. When the price of an input goes up, supply shifts up or to the left, driving equilibrium prices up. Rolex watches become more expensive when gold prices rise. Coffee gets more expensive when drought hits coffee-growing regions. Technology. Better production technology lets suppliers produce more at the same cost. This shifts supply right and pushes prices down. This is why consumer electronics have gotten dramatically cheaper over decades. Manufacturing technology improved massively. Number of sellers. More competitors in a market increases supply and pushes prices down. One streaming service can charge whatever it wants. 10 streaming services have to compete on price. Government policies. Taxes raise the cost of production and reduce supply. Subsidies lower it and increase supply. Regulations can go either way. Uber in the rain. Let's walk through a live example from start to finish. It starts raining heavily in a city. Suddenly. Demand side. Everyone who is going to walk decides they want to ride. Demand for rides jumps sharply and immediately. Supply side. The number of drivers doesn't change instantly. If anything, some drivers avoid driving in heavy rain. Result. Demand up, supply flat or slightly down. The app detects this imbalance. Surge pricing is an algorithmically fueled technique that activates when there is a demand-supply imbalance, when there is a downward shift in both rider demand and driver availability. TurboTax. Price spikes. Two things happen simultaneously. Some riders see the price and decide to wait under an awning, call a friend, or take the subway. Demand decreases. Some drivers see the higher earnings and decide it's worth getting on the road in the rain. Supply increases. The two forces push back toward each other. The price settles at a new, higher equilibrium, higher than before the rain, but lower than the initial spike. This entire process happened in minutes, automatically, with no committee, no central planning, no official decision. Just millions of individual choices responding to a price signal. That is the market mechanism. Concert tickets, a masterclass in scarcity. Here is one of the most relatable supply and demand examples alive right now. A popular artist announces a tour, one night in your city. The venue holds 20,000 people. Supply is completely fixed, 20,000 seats. That is the ceiling. No amount of price adjustment can create more seats in a venue that is already built. Demand is effectively unlimited for a massively popular artist. Millions of fans want to go. When supply is fixed and demand far exceeds it, prices go up until enough people are priced out to bring quantity demanded down to 20,000. Most major sports leagues and online ticket brokers like Ticketmaster use dynamic pricing. Algorithms adjust ticket prices based on shifts in supply and demand, time remaining until the event, and in some cases even weather or recent team performance. National tax tools. The face value of a ticket might be set at $100, But the market clearing price, the price at which exactly 20,000 people are willing and able to buy, might be $400 or $800. The gap between face value and market price is where scalpers operate. They buy at face value and resell at market price. From a purely economic standpoint, they are arbitrageurs, finding and closing the gap between the official price and the true market price. Whether that is fair is a separate question. Economically, it is just supply and demand doing what supply and demand does.
Your rent went up for this reason. Housing is the supply and demand story that affects more people's lives more directly than almost any other. The housing market operates on the same principles as every other market, with one major complication. Supply is extremely slow to respond to demand. Building new housing takes years. Zoning laws, construction timelines, permitting, materials, labor, all of these create a massive lag between when demand rises and when new supply can show up. During economic booms, cities often experience an influx of people seeking jobs, leading to increased demand for housing. As more individuals compete for limited available properties, sellers can raise their asking prices. Fidelity. When a tech company opens a major office in a mid-sized city, thousands of well-paid workers move there. They all want housing. The existing housing stock doesn't change overnight. Demand surges, supply is temporarily fixed, prices rise. Landlords aren't raising rent to be evil. They're raising rent because the market tells them they can. The same number of apartments is now being sought by a larger, wealthier pool of renters. Basic supply and demand. The long-run fix is more housing supply, more buildings, more units. But because supply in housing is so slow to respond, the short-run pain can last years.
The labor market. Yes, your salary too. Supply and demand doesn't just set prices for goods, it sets the price of your time. Your salary is the market price for your labor. You are on the supply side. Employers are on the demand side. Your wage is where those two forces reach equilibrium. If demand for a particular skill increases, but the supply of that skilled labor is in short supply, the ability to secure a job or request higher wages may be more favorable. In 2025, wages for scientific and technical jobs, those that require higher levels of education and specialized training, were more than double that of hospitality and food services on average. Tax Foundation. Why do software engineers earn more than retail workers? Not because their time is morally worth more, because the supply of people who can do the job well is limited relative to the number of employers trying to hire them. If software engineering were as easy to learn as working a register, and millions of people could do it equally well, wages would fall toward equilibrium with other labor markets. The flip side, any skill you have that few others have, and that employers need, is a supply and demand advantage. That is the pure economics of earning power. When everyone rushes to study the same field because it is currently high-paying, the supply of workers in that field grows. Eventually, wages in that field compress. The market adjusts. Always.
Price elasticity. Why some prices move more than others. Not all products respond to price changes the same way. This is captured in a concept called price elasticity of demand. Elastic demand means consumers are sensitive to price changes. A 10% price increase causes a large drop in quantity demanded. Luxury items, entertainment, restaurant meals, these tend to be elastic. If the restaurant raises prices too much, people eat at home. Inelastic demand means consumers are relatively insensitive to price changes. A 10% price increase causes only a small drop in quantity demanded. Gasoline, insulin, cigarettes, and other necessities or addictions, these tend to be inelastic. People pay the higher price because the alternative is worse. This distinction explains a lot of real-world pricing behavior. Companies with inelastic products charge more because they can. Drug companies know that patients will pay for insulin regardless of airlines. Airlines know that business travelers need to fly regardless of fare. Prussic acid in grass that builds up in frigid weather kills cows, forcing farmers to limit cow grazing. That shifts beef supply to the left and drives prices up. But so far, consumer appetite appears inelastic.
People complain about the beef price and buy it anyway. National Taxpayers Union. Products with elastic demand have to be careful with pricing. Raise it too much, and customers walk. Streaming services discovered this when they raised prices and millions of subscribers canceled. Elasticity bit them. Knowing whether your spending is elastic or inelastic is useful. Elastic spending is where you have actual pricing power as a consumer. Inelastic spending is where the market has power over you.
The shortage and the surplus. Two situations markets hate. A shortage happens when price is set below equilibrium. Quantity demanded exceeds quantity supplied. More people want the thing than can get it. Signs of a shortage: waiting lists, sold-out stock, queues, under-the-table deals, scalping. The GPU shortage of 2020 to 2022 was a shortage. Demand for GPUs exploded. Gaming, crypto mining, then AI. Supply from semiconductor fabs could not keep up. Shortage. Prices on secondary markets went to multiples of retail. A surplus happens when price is set above equilibrium. Quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded. More of the thing exists than people want at that price. Signs of a surplus: sale racks, discounts, clearance, excess inventory. When fast fashion brands overproduce a seasonal style and it doesn't sell, they discount it heavily to clear stock. That is a surplus resolving itself through price reduction. In free markets, surpluses and shortages are temporary. Price adjusts to clear the imbalance. In markets with price controls, where government sets a maximum or minimum price, shortages and surpluses can persist indefinitely because the price signal is blocked.
Supply shocks, when the world interrupts the market. Sometimes supply doesn't move gradually. It gets hit suddenly. A supply shock is an unexpected event that dramatically shifts supply, usually reducing it. The COVID-19 pandemic was one of the largest simultaneous supply shocks in modern history. Factories shut down, shipping lanes congested, workers stayed home. The supply of almost everything dropped at once. At the same time, governments sent money directly to consumers. Demand held up, or in some categories spiked, while supply collapsed. Result? Inflation. Broadly rising prices across the economy. More money chasing fewer goods. The post-pandemic inflation surge of 2021 to 2023 was substantially driven by this supply-demand collision, though the specific mix of supply-driven versus demand-driven inflation varied by category and is still debated by economists. Natural disasters are supply shocks. Geopolitical events are supply shocks. A single hurricane hitting the Gulf of Mexico can reduce the oil supply enough to move gasoline prices nationwide within days. You can't control supply shocks, but understanding what causes a price spike, a genuine supply disruption versus a company just charging more, helps you make better decisions about when to buy, wait, or substitute.
What this means for you practically. Supply and demand is not just intellectual context. It is a decision-making tool. Timing purchases. Demand for flights peaks during holidays and summer. Supply of seats doesn't change much. Prices spike. Fly on Tuesday in November, and the same seat costs a fraction of a Friday in July. You are navigating the demand curve. Understanding salary negotiations. You are a supplier of labor. Your employer is a buyer. If the market for your skill set is tight, few qualified people, many open roles, your negotiating position is strong. If the market is flooded, too many qualified people, few openings, the employer has leverage. Knowing which market you are in changes how you negotiate. Evaluating big purchases. Houses, cars, and electronics all follow supply and demand cycles. Buying a car in 2021-2022, when supply chains were destroyed and demand was high, meant paying over sticker price. Buying the same car in a normal market means paying at or below. Patience has a market price. Reading price signals. When a price goes up, something changed on the supply side or demand side. Finding out which one tells you whether the increase is temporary or structural. Temporary supply shocks normalize. Structural demand increases often don't. Dynamic pricing is expanding rapidly. From ride-sharing to concerts to hotels to airlines to potentially grocery stores, the electronic shelf label market hit $2 billion in 2024. Europe has already made the transition, with 80% of European supermarkets using digital price tags. Understanding dynamic pricing is no longer optional financial literacy. It is becoming a basic life skill.
The limits of supply and demand. Supply and demand is powerful. It is not all-powerful. Markets can fail. They work best when buyers and sellers have good information, when competition exists, when the costs and benefits of a transaction are fully captured in the price. When those conditions break down, incomplete information, monopoly power, externalities like pollution, public goods that no one has incentive to provide, pure supply and demand produces bad outcomes, and other mechanisms are needed. Supply and demand also doesn't address distribution. A market can clear efficiently while leaving large portions of the population unable to afford basic necessities. The market is good at allocating things to whoever values them most and can pay. It is not inherently concerned with whether that allocation is fair. These are real limitations worth knowing. Supply and demand is a tool. Like any tool, knowing what it is good for and what it is not good for makes you better at using it.
Demand is the quantity people are willing and able to buy at a given price. Price up, quantity demanded down. Supply is the quantity producers are willing to offer at a given price. Price up, quantity supplied up. Equilibrium is where supply meets demand, the market clearing price. Demand shifts with income, preferences, related goods prices, expectations, and number of buyers. Supply shifts with input costs, technology, number of sellers, and government policy. Surge pricing is supply and demand in real time, algorithmically enforced equilibrium. Concert tickets, rent, salaries, and groceries all follow the same underlying logic. Price elasticity determines how sensitive quantity is to price changes. Necessities are inelastic. Luxuries are elastic. Shortages happen when price is too low. Surpluses happen when price is too high. Both self-correct in free markets. Supply shocks cause sudden price spikes. Post-pandemic inflation was a textbook supply-demand collision. Understanding this framework lets you time purchases, negotiate better, and read market signals.
Final thought. Every price you have ever paid was the answer to a question the market was asking. At this price, how many people want this, and how many people can provide it? The price you see is not arbitrary. It is information. It tells you how scarce something is relative to how much people want it. It tells you where the market currently sits. It tells you when to buy, when to wait, and when to substitute. The people who understand this framework navigate markets better than the ones who don't. Not because they can predict prices perfectly, nobody can, but because they understand the forces behind price movements and can respond intelligently instead of reactively. You understand it now. Next time you open Uber after a concert and see the surge price, you are not looking at a company trying to rip you off. You are looking at supply and demand doing exactly what it does. Walk 2 blocks, wait 15 minutes. Let the market rebalance. Then book the ride.